turn this down just a little bit. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and pin this. Thank you so, so much. And I'm going to go ahead and add you as a moderator. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. For those of you who don't know, tonight is Monday Night Vampire Book Club. It's essentially like a podcast style live where I read the voted upon book to you all. About 3 weeks ago now, you all voted for Dracula by Bram Stoker. So I couldn't deny that to you all. I'm very, very excited. I am so excited you're all here. Thank you so much for being here. This evening, I think we're actually starting on chapter 7. I think it's chapter 8 in like regular books. The modern one is 7. It's where we are basically reading a cutting from the Daily Dailygraph or whatever it's called. So we'll be starting there this evening. We usually go for about 2 hours. There's some laughs, some, us joking around, obviously. Hi, Charlie. I miss your face too, babe. Hey, Steph Noakes. How are you doing, babe? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see so many nice people here. This is very, very nice. So, if for some reason you have to leave the live and you're like, oh, poop, I really wanted to watch this tonight, I have actually started downloading these and recording them on YouTube. So they will be up there as well. It'll be in the Vampire Book Club section. So very, very easy. So if you want to watch them, you can. We did talk about this last time. I don't know if we're going to be able to do any of the Vampire Chronicles over there. I'll have to look and see what the legalities are. I still haven't looked. I apologize. If somebody can look and see while we're on here, let me know. But I'll do a little research to see if I can record it. I think if I just put, it's a reading, for free, like it's not anything. It's a book club, so I think if we put it under that, it should be generally speaking fine, especially if I say I don't own the rights and things like that. But we'll see. We will see. So you are so welcome, of course. Absolutely. I'm so glad you're all here. Yeah. Let's see. Yes. So Kay Shannara and Domenico 777, my darling fiance, they are the moderators tonight. If you have any questions and they answer you, it's okay. They've been appointed. So hi, how are you? All right, so I'm going to take a sip here of my tea. I'm going to mute myself real quick. Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Are you ready to go? You want to start on chapter 7 of Dracula? Let me know. Let's see, I'm making soup listening to VVC. Wow, that sounds like a great night. I love a soup night. I'm a big fan. I was appointed with a stick in the chest. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is the Moon Made Me Do It mug. So love this mug. What was I going to say? I started recently doing something very odd. Dominic and I started putting like a leaf, a flower, a petal, I guess a petal, realistically, of hibiscus in our Earl Grey. It has changed the flavor profile. It's delicious. I don't know. If you have the ability to do so, try it. See if you like it. It's different. So, I need this calm presence tonight. You got it. I'm here for you, okay? Things have been a little rough over here too. I feel you, babe. I got it. So we're going to have a nice relaxing night, okay? Yeah, we're going to have a nice relaxing night. Hello, how are you? All right. Let's see. Will you ever go back to your, do you mean bangs? Maybe. Possibly. I'm thinking about it. I might do clip-in. I'm not sure yet. The upkeep of my bangs was driving me insane. I dyed my hair maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. I'm naturally a strawberry blonde, like on the redhead side. Believe it or not. This is actually my natural eyebrow color, though. They're very dark. But the constant root growth and my bangs becoming uneven was just driving me insane. And I was like, you know what? I've had bangs since I was 5. So I think it's about time that I tried something different. Ideally, what I wanted to do is to grow them out so I could do more like period piece hairstyles, vintage hairstyles. So that's kind of the reason I grew them out. If you look, they're down to here now. So they've gotten quite long. So, all right, perfect. Well, I saw some thumbs up. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move this mic back just slightly so I have a little bit of room here. Pardon if you hear the wires moving. Okay. All right. Well, let's dive into it. I'm hoping, what are we hoping for? We're starting on 7. I'd like to get to at least 10 tonight. Let's see what happens. We should go till about 10:15, 10:30, okay? All right, so let's begin. Chapter 7, Cutting from the Daily Graph, 8th August, pasted by Mina Murray in her journal. From a correspondent, Whitby. One of the greatest and suddenest storms on record has just been experienced here, with results both strange and unique. The weather had been somewhat sultry, but not to any degree uncommon in the month of August. Sunday evening was as fine as ever was known, and the great body of holiday makers laid out yesterday for visits to Mulgrave Woods, Robin Hood's Bay, Rig Mill, Runswith, Staithes, and the various trips in the neighborhood of Whitby. The steamers Emma and Scarborough made trips up and down the coast, and there was an unusual amount of tripping both to and from Whitby. The day was unusually fine till the afternoon, when some of the gossips who frequent the East Cliff churchyard and from the commanding eminence watched the wide sweep of sea visible to the north and east, called attention to a sudden show of mares' tails high in the sky to the northwest. The wind was blowing from the southwest in the mild degree which in barometrical language is ranked number 2 light breeze. Very dramatic. The Coast Guard on duty at once made report, and one old fisherman who for more than half a century has kept watch on weather signs from the East Cliff foretold in an emphatic manner the coming of a sudden storm. The approach of sunset was so very beautiful, so grand in its masses of splendidly colored clouds, that there was quite an assemblage on the walk along the cliff in the old churchyard to enjoy the beauty. Before the sun dipped below the black mass of Kettleness, standing boldly athwart the western sky, its downward way was marked by myriad clouds of every sunset color: flame, purple, pink, green and violet, and all the tints of gold, with here and there masses not large but of seemingly absolute blackness, in all sorts of shapes as well as outlined as colossal silhouettes. The experience was not lost on the painters, and doubtless some of the sketches of the prelude to the great storm will grace the R.A. and R.I. walls in May next. It sounds very picturesque, doesn't it? More than one captain made up his mind then and there that his cobble and his mule, as they termed the different classes of boats, would remain in the harbor till the storm had passed. The wind fell away entirely during the evening, and at midnight there was a dead calm, a sultry heat, and that prevailing intensity which, on the approach of thunder, affects persons of a sensitive nature. I myself am a person of sensitive nature. There were but few lights in sight as at sea, for even the coasting steamers, which usually hug the shore so closely, kept well to seaward, and but few fishing boats were in sight. The only sail noticeable was a foreign schooner with all sails set, which was seemingly going westwards. The foolhardiness or ignorance of her officers was a prolific theme for comment whilst she remained in sight, and efforts were made to signal her to reduce sail in the face of her danger. Before the night shut down, she was seen with sails idly flapping as she gently rolled on the undulating swell of the sea. Undulating's a lovely word, isn't it? As idle as a painted ship upon a painted sea. Shortly before 10 o'clock, the stillness of the air grew quite oppressive, and the silence was so marked that the bleating of a sheep inland or the barking of a dog in town was distinctly heard, and the band on the pier, with its lively French air, was like a discord in the great harmony of nature's silence. A little after midnight came a strange sound from over the sea. High overhead the air, began to carry a strange, faint, hollow booming. Then, without warning, the tempest broke. With a rapidity which at the time seemed incredible, and even afterwards is impossible to realize, the whole aspect of nature at once became convulsed. The waves rose in growing fury, each overtopping its fellow, till in a very few minutes the lately glassy sea was like a roaring and devouring monster. White-crested waves beat madly on the level sands and rushed up the shelving cliffs. Others broke over the piers, and with their spume swept the lanthorns of the lighthouses which rise from the end of either pier of Whitby harbour. The wind roared like thunder, and blew with such force that it was with difficulty that even strong men kept their feet, or clung with grim clasp to the iron stanchions. It was found necessary to clear the entire pier from the mass of onlookers, or else the fatalities of the night would have increased manifold. To add to the difficulties and dangers of the time, masses of sea fog came drifting inland, white, wet clouds which swept by in a ghostly fashion, so dank and cold that it needed but little effort of imagination to think that the spirits of those lost at sea were touching their living brethren with the clammy hands of death, and many a one shuddered as the wreaths of sea mist swept by. An explosion of bats. Thank you. Thank you. Imagine. That would have been great if there was just an empty chair and then exploded out of bats. At times the mist cleared, and the sea for some distance could be seen in the glare of the lightning, which came thick and fast, followed by such peals of thunder that the whole sky overhead seemed trembling under the shock of the footsteps of the storm. Some of the scenes thus revealed were of immeasurable grandeur and of absorbing interest. The sea, running mountains high, threw skywards which each wave mighty masses of white foam, which the tempest seemed to snatch at and whirl away into space. Here and there a fishing boat with a rag of sail running madly for shelter before the blast, now and again the white wings of a storm-tossed sea-bird. On the summit of the east cliff the new searchlight was ready for experiment, but had not yet been tried. The officers in charge of it got into working order, and in the pauses of inrushing mist swept it the surface of the sea. I went to Whitby last year and lived my best modern goth vampire life. Oh my god, that sounds divine. I would love to visit. I only have a painting, but I would love to visit. I would probably wear clothes to try to be like, oh, yes, it is the 19th century here, actually, right now. Before long, the searchlight discovered some distance away a schooner with all its sails set, apparently the same vessel which had been noticed earlier in the evening. The wind had by this time backed to the east, and there was a shudder amongst the watchers on the cliff as they realized the terrible danger in which she was now. Between her and the port lay the great flat reef on which so many good ships have from time to time suffered, and, with the wind blowing from its present quarter, it would be quite possible that she should fetch the entrance of the harbour. It was now nearly an hour of high tide, but the waves were so great that in their troughs the shallows of the shore were almost visible, and the schooner, with all sails set, was rushing with such speed that, in the words of one old salt, she must fetch up somewhere if it was only in hell. Dramatic. Then came another rush of sea fog, greater than any hitherto, a mass of dank mist, which seemed to close on all things like a grey pall, and left available to men only the organ of hearing, for the roar of the tempest and the crash of the thunder and the booming of the mighty billows came through the damp oblivion even louder than before. Let's see. Small town vibes, my friend, nice stuck. The ruins were phenomenal. I would love to go. That sounds so lovely. The rays of the searchlight were kept fixed on the harbour mouth across the east pier, where the shock was expected, and men waited breathless. The wind suddenly shifted to the northeast, and the remnant of the sea fog melted in the blast. And then, Mirabel Dick, too, between the piers, leaping from wave to wave as it rushed a headlong speed, swept the strange schooner before the blast, with all sails set, and gained the safety of the harbor. The searchlight followed her, and a shudder ran through all who saw her, for lashed to the helm was a corpse, with drooping head, which swung horribly to and fro at each motion of the ship. No other form could be seen on the deck at all. A great awe came on as they all realized that the ship, as if by a miracle, had found the harbor, unsteered save by the hand of a dead man. However, all took place more quickly than it takes to write these words. The schooner paused not, but rushing across the harbor, pitched herself on that accumulation of sand and gravel washed by many tides and many storms into the southeast corner of the pier, jutting under the east cliff, known locally as Tate Hill Pier. Thanks for being here. There was, of course, a considerable concussion of the vessel drove up on the sand heap. Every spar, rope, and stay was strained, and some of the top hamper came crashing down. But strangers of all, the very instant the shore was touched, an immense dog sprang up on deck from below as if shot up by the concussion, and running forward, jumped from the bow on the sand. Making straight for the steep cliff where the churchyard hangs over the laneway to the east pier so steeply that some of the flat tombstones, thruffsteins and thrusteins, as they call them in the Whitby vernacular, actually project over where the sustaining cliff has fallen away. It disappeared in the darkness, which seemed intensified just beyond the focus of the searchlight. Hello, Australia. How you doing? It so happened that there was no one at the moment on Tate Hill Pier, as all those whose houses are in the close proximity were either in bed or were out on the heights above. Thus, the Coast Guard on duty on the eastern side of the harbor, who at once ran down to the little pier, was the first to climb on board. The men working the searchlight, after scouring the entrance of the harbor without seeing anything, then turned the light on the derelict and kept it there. The Coast Guard ran aft, and when he came beside the wheel, bent over to examine it, and recoiled at once as though under some sudden emotion. This seemed to pique general curiosity, and quite a number of people began to run. It is a good way round from the West Cliff by the drawbridge to Tate Hill Pier, but your correspondent is a fairly good runner, and came well ahead of the crowd. When I arrived, however, I found already assembled on the pier a crowd whom the Coast Guard and police had refused to allow to come on board. By the courtesy of the chief boatman, I was, as your correspondent, permitted to climb on deck, and was one of a small group who saw the dead seaman whilst actually lashed to the wheel. It was no wonder that the Coast Guard was surprised or even awed, for not often can such a sight have been seen. The man was simply fastened by his hands, tied one over the other, to a spoke of the wheel. Between the inner hand and the wood was a crucifix, the set of beads on which it was fastened being around both wrists and wheel, and all kept fast by the binding cords. The poor fellow may have been seated at one time, but the flapping and buffeting of the sails had worked through the rudder of the wheel and had dragged him to and fro, so the cords with which he was tied had cut the flesh to the bone. Ugh. Accurate note was made of the state of things, and a doctor, Surgeon J.M. Caffin of 33 East Elliot Place, who came immediately after me, declared, after making examination, that the man must have been dead for quite 2 days. In his pocket was a bottle, carefully corked, empty save for a little roll of paper, which proved to be the addendum to the log. Oh yeah, definitely rewatch. The Coast Guard said the man must have tied up his own hands, fastening the knots with his teeth. The fact that a Coast Guard was the first on board may save some complications later on in the Admiralty Court, for Coast Guards cannot claim the salvage, which is the right of the first civilian entering on a derelict. Already, however, the legal tongues were wagging, and one young law student is loudly asserting that the rights of the owner are already completely sacrificed, his property being held in contravention of the statutes of mortmain, since the tiller, as emblemship, if not proof of delegated possession, is held in a dead hand. It is needless to say that the dead steersman has been reverently removed from the place where he held his honorable watch and ward till death, a steadfastness as noble as that of a young Casablanca. Oh, Casabianca. Casablanca. Casabianca. And placed in the mortuary to await inquest. Already the sudden storm is passing and its fierceness is abating. The crowds are scattering backward and the sky is beginning to redden over the Yorkshire wolds. I shall send, in time for your next issue, further details of the derelict ship which found her way so miraculously into the harbor in the storm. Whitby. Very dramatic. You know, I would have loved to have read that on a Sunday morning. Just, wow, dead guy found steering ship from foreign seas. Interesting. Oh my goodness. Ugh. Sorry, it's like so cold here. Anybody who has a septum, you know, I feel like my septum is freezing right now. If you see me messing with it, that's why. 9th August. The sequel to the strange arrival of the derelict in the storm last night is almost more startling than the thing itself. It turns out the schooner is Russian from Varna and is called the Demeter. Blood for the blood god. Dracula is such a drama queen, and the fact that he showed up on a ship with a dead man steering it, way to make an entrance, you know. New York City's, yeah, I'm in Pittsburgh, and it is just, it's terribly cold. It's very, very cold here. So I can imagine. I know New York City and Connecticut just recently had a snowstorm too, so I can imagine. You know, I'm from Long Island originally, so I was watching pictures. I was like, wow, you guys got a blizzard. Good gracious. Okay, she's called the Demeter. She is almost entirely in ballast of silver sand, of which only a small amount of cargo. A number of great wooden boxes filled with mold. Ooh. This cargo was consigned to a Whitby solicitor, Mr. S.F. Billington of the 7 The Crescent, who this morning went aboard took. Oh. I think it should say aboard and took, but it says aboard to took formal possession of the goods consigned to him. More snow tomorrow. Oh my God. This is terrible. I'm going to call someone. The Russian consul, too, acting for the charter party, took formal possession of the ship and paid all harbor dues, etc. Nothing is talked about here today except the strange coincidence of aboard and took. What is up with this book? Okay. I don't know. I'm going to burn it. No, I would never. The officials of the Board of Trade have been most exacting in seeing that every compliance has been made with existing regulations. As the matter is to be a 9 days' wonder, they are evidently determined that there shall be no cause of other complaint. Yeah, I need a newer, modern version of this. You know, it's funny, though. Even the older version I had of this, it did have typos, too. But I think because that one was on printing press, because that one's from, I think, 1908 or 1910 or something like that. I think it was still printing press at that time. That's probably why. A good deal of interest was aboard concerning the dog which landed when the ship struck, and more than a few of the members of the SPCA, which is very strong in Whitby, have tried to befriend the animal. To the general disappointment, however, it was not to be found. It seems to have disappeared entirely from the town. It may be that it was frightened and made its way onto the moors, where it is still hiding in terror. There are some who look with dread on such a possibility, lest the latter on it should in itself become a danger, for it is evidently a fierce brute. Early this morning, a large dog, a half-bred mastiff, belonging to a coal merchant close to Tate Hill Pier, was found dead in the roadway opposite the master's yard. It had been fighting and manifestly had a savage opponent, for its throat was torn away and its belly was slit open as if with a savage claw. Where did the dog go? I think he's laying in a box of mold. That's where I think that dog is. Hello, darling. Nice to see you. Later, by the kindness of the Board of Trade Inspector, I have been permitted to look over the logbook of the Demeter, which was in order up in order up to within 3 days, but contained nothing of special interest except as to facts of missing men. The greatest interest, however, is with regard to the paper found in the bottle, which was today produced at the inquest, and a more strange narrative than the two between them unfold it has not been my lot to come across. As there is no motive for concealment, I am permitted to use them, and accordingly send you a rescript, simply omitting technical details of seamanship and supercargo. It almost seems as though the captain had been seized with some kind of mania before he got well into blue water, and that this had developed persistently throughout the voyage. Of course, my statement must be taken cum grano salis, since I am writing from the dictation of a clerk of the Russian consul who kindly translated for me, time being short. Log of the Demeter. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight. I'm reading like I got the 1920s, slang in me tonight. Oh my gosh. Like a transatlantic twang on me. I don't know what's wrong. It's Monday. I think it's just transatlantic Mondays from now on. Okay. Written 18th July. Things so strange happening that I shall keep accurate note henceforth till we land. Dun, 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 dun. On 6th July we finished taking in cargo, silver, sand, and boxes of earth. At noon set sail, east wind, fresh, crew, 5 hands, 2 mates, cook, and myself, captain. On 11th July, at dawn, entered Bosphorus. Boarded by Turkish custom officers, backsheesh, all correct, underway at 4 p.m. Bogarting. On 12th July, through Dardanelles, more custom officers and flag boat of guarding squadron. Backsheesh again, work of officers thorough but quick, want us off soon. At dark passed into archipelago. On 13th July, passed Cape Matapan. Grew dissatisfied about something, seemed scared but would not speak out. On 14th July was somewhat anxious about crew, men all steady fellows who sailed with me before. Mate could not make out what was wrong. They only told him there was something, and crossed themselves. Mate lost his temper with one of them that day, and struck him. Expected fierce quarrel, but all was quiet. They skip over my birthday on the 15th and go to the 16th. On July 16th, mate reported in the morning that one of the crew, Petrovsky, was missing. Could not account for it. Took larboard watch 8 bells last night. Was relieved by Abramov? Yeah, that sounds about right. But did not go to bunk. Men more downcast than ever. All said they expected something of the kind, but would not say more than there was something on board. Mate getting very impatient with them. Feared something trouble ahead. On 17th July, yesterday, one of the men, Ulgarin, came to my cabin, and in an awestruck way confided to me that he thought there was a strange man aboard the ship. He said that in his watch he had been sheltering behind the deck-house as there was a rainstorm, when he saw a tall, thin man who was not like any of the crew come up the companionway and go along the deck forward and disappear. He followed cautiously, but when he got to bows found no one, and the hatchways were all closed. He was in a panic of superstitious fear, and I am afraid the panic may spread. To allay it, I shall today search the entire ship carefully from stem to stern. Later in the day I got together the whole crew and told them, as they evidently thought there was someone in the ship, we would search from stem to stern. First mate, angry, said it was folly, and to yield to such foolish ideas would demoralize the men. Said he would engage to keep them out of trouble with the handspike. I let him take the helm, while the rest began a thorough search. All keeping abreast with lanterns, we left no corner unsearched. As there were only big wooden boxes, there were no odd corners where a man could hide. Men much relieved when search was over, and went back to work cheerfully. First mate scowled, but said nothing. 22nd July. Rough weather these last 3 days, and all hands busy with sails. No time to be frightened. Men seemed to have forgotten their dread. Mate cheerful again, and all on good terms. Praised men for work in bad weather. Past Gibraltar, and out through Straits. All well. 24th July. There seems some doom over the ship. Already a hand short and entering the Bay of Biscay, with wild weather ahead, and yet last night another man lost. Disappeared. Like the first, he came off his watch and was not seen again. Men all in a panic of fear. Sent a round-robin asking to have double watch as they fear to be alone. Mate angry. Fear there will be some trouble, as either he or the men will do some violence. 28th July. 4 days in hell, knocking about in a sort of maelstrom, and the wind a tempest. No sleep for anyone. Men all worn out, hardly know how to set a watch, since no one fit to go on. Second mate volunteered to steer and watch, and let men snatch a few hours' sleep. Wind abating, seas still terrific, but feel them less as ship is steadier. 29th July. Another tragedy. Had single watch tonight, as crew too tired to double. When morning watch came on deck, could find no one except steersman. Raised outcry, and all came on deck. Thorough search, but no one found. Are now without second mate, and crew in a panic. Mate and I agreed to go armed henceforth and wait for any sign of cause. 30th July. Last night. Rejoice we are nearing England. Weather fine, all sails set. Retired, worn out, slept soundly, awakened by mate telling me that both man of watch and steersman are missing. Only self and mate and 2 hands left to work ship. 1st August. 2 days of fog, and not a sail sighted. Had hoped when in the English Channel to be able to signal for help or get in somewhere. Not having power to work sails, have to run before wind. Dare not lower, as could not raise them again. We seem to be drifting into some terrible doom. Mate now more demoralized than either of men. His strong nature seems to have worked inwardly against himself. Men are beyond fear, working stolidly and patiently, with minds made up to worst. They are Russian, he Romanian. 2nd August, midnight. Woke up from a few minutes' sleep by hearing a cry seemingly outside my port. Could see nothing in fog. Rushed on deck and ran against mate. Tells me he heard cry and ran, but no sign of man on watch. 1 more gone. Lord help us. Mate says we must be past Straits of Dover, as in a moment of fog lifting he saw North Foreland, just as he heard the man cry out. If so, we are now off in the North Sea, and only God can guide us in this fog, which seems to move with us, and God seems to have deserted us. 3rd August. At midnight I went to relieve the man at the wheel, but when I got to it, found no one there. The wind was steady, and as we ran before it, there was no yawing. I dared not leave it, so I shouted for the mate. After a few seconds he rushed up on deck in his flannels. He looked wild-eyed and haggard, and I greatly fear his reason has given way. Wouldn't yours? He came close to me and whispered hoarsely with his mouth to my ear, as though fearing the very air might hear. It is here. I know it now. On the watch last night I saw it, like a man, tall and thin and ghastly pale. It was in the bows and looking out. I crept behind it and gave it my knife, but the knife went through it, empty as the air. And as he spoke he took the knife and drove it savagely into space. Then he went on. But it is here, and I'll find it. It is in the hold, perhaps, in one of these boxes. I'll unscrew them one by one and see. You work the helm. And having a warning look and his finger on his lip, he went below. There was springing up a choppy wind, and I could not leave the helm. I saw him come out on deck again with the tool chest and lantern, and go down the forward hatchway. He is mad, stark, raving mad, and it's no use trying to stop him. He can't hurt those big boxes. They are invoiced as clay, and to pull them about is as harmless a thing as he can do. So here I stay, and mind the helm, and write these notes. I can only trust in God and wait till the fog clears. Then, if I can't steer to any harbor with the wind that is, I shall cut down sails and lie by, and signal for help. It is nearly all over now. Just as I was beginning to hope that the mate would come out calmer, for I heard him knocking away at something in the hold, and work is good for him, there came up the hatchway a sudden, startled scream, which made my blood run cold, and up on the deck he came as if shot from a gun, a raging madman, with his eyes rolling and his face convulsed with fear. "Save me, save me!" he cried, and then looked round on the blanket of fog. His horror turned to despair, and in a steady voice he said, "You had better come too, Captain, before it is too late. He is there." And I know the secret now. The sea will save me from him, and it is all that is left. Before I could say a word or move forward to seize him, he sprang on the bulwark and deliberately threw himself into the sea. I suppose I know the secret too now. It was this madman who got rid of the men one by one, and now he has followed them himself. God help me. How am I to account for all those horrors when I go to port? When I get to port? Will that ever be? 4th August. Still fog, which the sunrise cannot pierce. I know there is sunrise because I am a sailor, why else I know not. I dared not go below. I dared not leave the helm, so here all night I stayed, and in the dimness of the night I saw it. Him. God forgive me, but the mate was right to jump overboard. It was better to die like a man, to die like a sailor in blue water. No man can object. But I am captain, and I must not leave my ship. But I shall baffle this fiend or monster, for I shall tie my hands to the wheel with my strength. When my strength begins to fail, and along with them I shall tie that which it, dare not touch. And then, come good wind or foul, I shall save my soul and my honor as a captain. I am growing weaker, and the night is coming on. The night is coming on. If he can look me in the face again, I may not have time to act. If we are wrecked, mayhap this bottle be found, and those who find it may understand. If not, well, then all men shall know that I have been true to my trust. God and the Blessed Virgin and the saints help a poor, ignorant soul trying to do his duty. Of course, the verdict was an open one. There is no evidence to adduce, and whether or not the man himself committed these murders, there is now none to say. My two special interests combining in one chapter, vampires and boat disasters. Yes. The folk here hold almost universally that the captain is simply a hero, and he is to be given a public funeral. Already it is arranged that his body is to be taken with a train of boats up the Esk for a piece, and then brought back to Tate Hill Pier and up the Abbey steps, for he is to be buried in the churchyard on the cliff. The owners of more than 100 boats have already given in their names as wishing to follow him to the grave. No trace has ever been found of the great dog, at which there is much mourning for. With public opinion in present state, he would, I believe, be adopted by the town. Tomorrow we'll see the funeral, and so will end this one more mystery of the sea. Yet the captain was a trooper for sure. Definitely. I don't know. Would I have jumped off? I don't know. It depends on how Dracula looked, I suppose, at that time. If he looked like a great, terrible beast, I don't know. I think I would have jumped off, honestly. Do you think The Voyage of the Last Demeter was a good portrayal of the captain's log? I think that I'm trying to be, if I'm being honest, I wasn't so crazy about that film. I don't know what it was about it. It just felt a little maybe lackluster, maybe. I don't know. Something about it I really didn't. It was a good film. I'll put it this way. It was a good film. Storyline wise, I did feel like it, followed the story pretty well. But there was just something about it was missing, and I can't put my finger on it. Maybe if anybody else feels the same, there was something about it I just was like, I don't know. But does anybody else feel that way by any chance? Yeah, I feel the same. It did feel disappointing somehow. There was just something about it. I don't know what it was. I went into that film, I think, with too high of expectations as someone who, if I had to choose what my favorite vampire story is, it is Dracula at the end of the day. So I went into it as somebody who loves the story, the book. You know what I mean? I'm such a dork for David S. Malkian. Yeah, listen, he is great. I agree. He also has his account. What is? He has like a comic book he has too, which is very interesting, about vampires, I believe. Let's see, I never saw it, but it looked like kind of a cash grab based on already existing. Yeah, that's how it felt, and I felt like they were cashing in on the fact that there was an adjacent Dracula film that was coming out. That's my opinion. Because at the time, Renfield was also coming out, so it felt like, oh, here's the full picture. Here's one interpretation of this and one interpretation of that. And now you have a full picture to come to the movies and see both, and that's how it felt. And even with Renfield, it was very, very funny. But even then, it's still, I don't know what I was looking for in that either. But to me, like if I had to rate it out of 5, I would have given it a 3, if that makes sense. I feel the same with the Demeter. I'm very middle of the road with it. It wasn't a terrible film. The acting was very good. The costumes were great. I don't know what it was about those two films, in my opinion. So, if you feel the same, you're not alone. So, all right, we shall continue. Sorry, I have the sniffles a little bit too. Sorry, guys. Mina Murray's Journal. I had never seen that side of the story. Yeah, listen, it was a good film. I won't deny that. I think I just felt it was missing something. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know. I don't know what it was missing. Something. Maybe it was the cinematography for me. It could be that. It was the same with Renfield. I think a lot of newer films, the way that they use what is it, like CGI or whatever, for the way that they film things, I lose the immersiveness sometimes, if that makes sense. And I think I struggled with that in both those films, because obviously one was comedic and dramatic, and the other was, again, like dramatic but also kind of violent, and not as funny. So I don't know. That's how I feel about it. Tried watching Nosferatu for the second time and fell asleep again. I won't judge you. Okay. All right. Mina Murray's Journal, 8th August. Lucy was very restless all night, and I too could not sleep. The storm was fearful, and as it boomed loudly among the chimney pots, it made me shudder. When a sharp puff came, it seemed to be like a distant gun. Strangely enough, Lucy did not wake, but she got up twice and dressed herself. Fortunately, each time I awoke in time and managed to undress her without waking her, and got her back to bed. It is a very strange thing, this sleepwalking, for as soon as her will is thwarted in any physical way, her intention, if there be any, disappears, and she yields herself almost exactly to the routine of her life. Early in the morning we both got up and went down to the harbor to see if anything had happened in the night. There were very few people about, and though the sun was bright and the air clear and fresh, the big, grim-looking waves that seemed dark themselves because the foam that topped them was like snow, forced themselves in through the mouth of the harbor, like a bullying man going through a crowd. Somehow I felt glad that Jonathan was not on the sea last night, but on land. But oh, is he on land or sea? Where is he, and how? I am getting fearfully anxious about him. If I only knew what to do, and could do anything. 10th August. The funeral of the poor sea captain today was most touching. Every boat in the harbor seemed to be there, and the coffin was carried by captains all the way from Tate Hill Pier up to the churchyard. Lucy came with me, and we went early to our old seat, whilst the cortege of boats went up the river to the viaduct and came down again. The poor fellow was laid to rest quite near our seat, so that we stood on it when the time came and saw everything. Poor Lucy seemed much upset. She was restless and uneasy all the time, and I cannot but think that her dreaming at night is telling on her. She is quite odd in one thing. She will not admit to me that there is any cause for restlessness, or if there be, she does not understand it herself. There was an additional cause in that poor Mr. Swales was found dead this morning in our seat, his neck being broken. He had evidently, as the doctor said, fallen back in the seat in some sort of fright. For there was a look of fear and horror on his face that the men said made them shudder. Poor dear old man! Perhaps he had seen death with his dying eyes. Lucy is so sweet and sensitive that she feels influences more acutely than other people do. Just now she was quite upset by a little thing which I did not much heed, though I am myself very fond of animals. One of the men who come up here often to look for the boats was followed by his dog. The dog is always with him. They are both quiet persons, and I never saw the man angry, nor heard the dog bark. During the service the dog would not come to its master, who was on the seat with us, but kept a few yards off, barking and howling. Its master spoke to it gently, and then harshly, and then angrily, but it would neither come nor cease to make a noise. It was in a sort of fury, with its eyes savage, and all its hair bristling out like a cat's tail when puss is on the warpath. What a weird way to put that. Finally the man, too, got angry and jumped down and kicked the dog, and then took it by the scruff of the neck and half dragged and half threw it on the tombstone on which the seat is fixed. The moment it touched the stone, the poor thing became quiet and fell all into a terrible tremble. It did not try to get away, but crouched down, quivering and cowering, and was in such a pitiable state of terror that I tried, though without effect, to comfort it. Lucy was full of pity, too, but she did not attempt to touch the dog, but looked at it in an agonized sort of way. I greatly fear that as she is of too supersensitive a nature to go through the world without trouble, she will be dreaming of this tonight, I am sure. The whole agglomeration of things, the ship steered into port by a dead man, his attitude, tied to the wheel with a crucifix and beads, the touching funeral, the dog, now furious and now in terror, will all afford material for her dreams. Could you imagine? Sometimes Yule turns a phrase like "Puss was on the warpath." Yeah, really. Puss was on the warpath. What? Okay. I think it will be best for her to go to bed tired out physically, so I shall take her for a long walk by the cliffs to Robin Hood's Bay and back. She ought not to have much inclination for sleepwalking then. Who knows? All right, we're going to start chapter 8 here in just one moment. Delish. Dominic made my tea this evening very, very well. Okay, here we go. Chapter 8, Mina Murray's Journal. Same day, 11 p.m. Oh, but I am tired. If it were not that I had made my diary a duty, I should not open it tonight. We had a lovely walk. Lucy, after a while, was in gay spirits, owing, I think, to some dear cows who came nosing toward us in a field close to the lighthouse, and frightened the wits out of us. I also feel that I would be in gay spirits if cows came over to me, so... Thank you, baby. We had oh, hang on. I believe we forgot everything except, of course, personal fear, and it seemed to wipe the slate clean and give us a fresh start. We had a capital severe tea at Robin Hood's Bay in a sweet little old-fashioned inn with a bow window, right over the seaweed-covered rocks of the Strand. I believe we should have shocked the new woman with our appetites. Men are more tolerant, bless them. Then we walked home with some, or rather many, stoppages to rest, and with our hearts full of a constant dread of wild bulls. Lucy was really tired, and we intended to creep off to bed as soon as we could. The young curate came in, however, and Mrs. Westerner asked him to stay for supper. Lucy and I had both a fight for it with the dusty miller. I know it was a hard fight on my part, and I am quite heroic. I think that some day the bishops might get another... Oh, no. Might get together, there we go, and see about breeding up a new class of curates, who don't take supper no matter how hard they may be pressed to, and who will know when girls are tired. Lucy is asleep and breathing softly. She has more color in her cheeks than usual, and looks oh so sweet. If Mr. Holmwood fell in love with her, seeing her only in the drawing-room, I wonder what he would say if he saw her now. Some of the new women writers will someday start an idea that men and women should be allowed to see each other asleep before proposing and accepting. But I suppose the new woman wouldn't condescend in future to accept. Won't condescend in future? I don't think that's written right either. The new woman wouldn't condescend in future to accept. Okay, I'm thinking that maybe that is correct. She will do the proposing herself. And a nice job she will make of it, too. There's some consolation in that. I am so happy tonight because dear Lucy seems better. I really believe she has turned the corner, and that we are over her troubles with dreaming. I should be quite happy if only I knew Jonathan, God bless him, and keep him. Oh, thank you, darling. I'm so glad you're here. I appreciate it. 11th August, 3 a.m. Diary again. No sleep now, so I may as well write. I am too agitated to sleep. We have had such an adventure, such an agonizing experience. I fell asleep as soon as I closed my diary. Suddenly I became broad awake and sat up with a horrible sense of fear upon me, and of some feeling of emptiness around me. The room was dark, so I could not see Lucy's bed. I stole across and felt for her. The bed was empty. I lit a match and found that she was not in the room. The door was shut, but not locked, as I had left it. I feared I wake her mother, who has been more than usually ill lately, so threw on some clothes and got ready to look for her. As I was leaving the room, it struck me that the clothes she wore might give me some clue to her dreaming intention. Dressing gown would mean house, dress outside. Dressing gown and dress were both in their places. Thank God, I said to myself, she cannot be far, as she is only in her night-dress. I ran downstairs and looked in the sitting-room. Not there. Then I looked in all the other rooms of the house, with an ever-growing fear chilling my heart. Finally I came to the hall door and found it open. It was not wide open, but the catch of the lock had not caught. The people of the house are careful to lock the door every night, so I feared that Lucy must have gone out as she was. There was no time to think of what might happen. A vague, overmastering fear obscured all details. I took a big, heavy shawl and ran out. The clock was striking 1 as I was in the crescent, and there was not a soul in sight. I ran along the north terrace, but could see no sign of the white figure which I expected. At the edge of the west cliff above the pier, I looked across the harbor to the east cliff in the hope of, or fear, I don't know which, of seeing Lucy in our favorite seat. There was a bright full moon, with heavy black driving clouds which threw the whole scene into a fleeting diorama of light and shade as they sailed across. For a moment or two I could see nothing, as the shadow of a cloud obscured St. Mary's Church and all around it. Then, as the cloud passed, I could see the ruins of the abbey coming into view. And as the edge of a narrow band of light as sharp as a sword cut moved along, the church and the churchyard became gradually visible. Whatever my expectation was, it was not disappointed, for there on our favorite seat the silver light of the moon struck a half-reclining figure, snowy white. The coming of the cloud was too quick for me to see much, for shadow shut down on light almost immediately, but it seemed to me as though something dark stood behind the seat where the white figure shone, and bent over it. What it was, whether man or beast, I could not tell. I did not wait to catch another glance, but flew down the steps to the pier and along by the fish market to the bridge, which was the only way to reach the east cliff. The town seemed as dead, for not a soul did I see. I rejoiced that it was so, for I wanted no witness of poor Lucy's condition. The time and distance seemed endless, and my knees trembled, and my breath came labored as I toiled up the endless steps to the abbey. I must have gone fast, and yet it seemed to me as if my feet were weighted with lead, and as though every joint in my body were rusty. When I got almost to the top, I could see the seat and the white figure, for I was now close enough to distinguish it even through the spells of shadow. There was undoubtedly something, long and black, bending over the half-reclining white figure. I called in fright, "Lucy! Lucy!" and something raised a head, and from where I could see a white face and red gleaming eyes. Lucy did not answer, and I ran on to the entrance of the churchyard. As I entered, the church was between me and the seat, and for a minute or so I lost sight of her. When I came in view again, the cloud had passed, and the moonlight struck so brilliantly that I could see Lucy half reclining with her head lying over the back of the seat. She was quite alone, and there was not a sign of any living thing about. When I bent over her, I could see that she was still asleep, her lips were parted, and she was breathing, not softly as usual with her, but in long, heavy gasps, as though striving to get her lungs full at every breath. As I came close, she put up her hand in her sleep and pulled the collar of her nightdress close around her throat. While she did so, there came a little shudder through her, as though she felt the cold. I flung the warm shawl over her and drew the edges tight around her neck, for I dreaded lest she should get some deadly chill from the night air, unclad as she was. I feared to wake her all at once, so, in order to have my hands free to help her, I fastened the shawl at her throat with a big safety pin. But I must have been clumsy in my anxiety or pricked her with it, for by and by, when her breathing became quieter, she put her hand to her throat again and moaned. When I had her carefully wrapped up, I put my shoes on her feet. Oh my gosh, she was barefoot. I didn't realize that. I put my shoes on her feet and then began very gently to wake her. At first she did not respond, but gradually she became more and more uneasy in her sleep, moaning and sighing occasionally. At last, as time was passing fast, and for many other reasons, I wished to get her home at once. I shook her forcibly till finally she opened her eyes and awoke. She did not seem surprised to see me, as of course she did not realize all at once where she was. Lucy always wakes prettily, and even at such a time when her body must have been chilled with cold and her mind somewhat appalled at waking unclad in a churchyard at night, she did not lose her grace. She trembled a little and clung to me. When I told her to come at once with me home, she rose without a word, with the obedience of a child. As we passed along, the gravel hurt my feet, and Lucy noticed me wince. She stopped and wanted to insist upon me taking her shoes, but I would not. However, when we got to the pathway outside the churchyard, where there was a puddle of water remaining from the storm, I daubed my feet with mud, using each foot in turn on the other, so that when we went home no one, in case we should meet anyone, should notice my bare feet. Fortune favored us, and we got home without meeting a soul. Once we saw a man who seemed not quite sober passing along a street in front of us, but we hid in a door till he had disappeared up an opening such as there are here. Steep little closes, or wynds, as they call them in Scotland. My heart beat so loud all the time that sometimes I thought I should faint. I was filled with anxiety about Lucy, not only for her health, lest she should suffer from the exposure, but for her reputation in case the story should get wind. When we got in, and had washed our feet, and had said a prayer of thankfulness together, I tucked her into bed. Before falling asleep, she asked, even implored me not to say a word to anyone, even her mother, about her sleepwalking adventure. She walked far. When I think about it, think about how far Mina just described. She really went far. In the films, it looks like she just goes out into the backyard, you know what I mean? But she went far. Ooh. I hesitated at first to promise, but on thinking of the state of her mother's health and how the knowledge of such a thing would fret her, and thinking too of how such a story might become distorted, nay, infallibly would, in case it should leak out, I thought it was wiser to do so. I hope I did right. I have locked the door, and the key is tied to my wrist, so perhaps I shall not be again disturbed. Lucy is sleeping soundly. The reflex of the dawn is high and far over the sea. I'm just going to have a sip of tea real quick. I'm so glad. My tea is still quite warm at this point, about an hour in, so excellent. Okay. Same day, noon. All goes well. Lucy slept till I woke her and seemed not to have even changed her side. The adventure of the night. Let's see. I wish I had such a dedicated friend to care for me after. I know. Suffering from the delusions with a TM at the up there. Hi, C. How are you? Yeah. Mina really was a girl's girl for Lucy at the end of the day. I feel so terrible that what happened to Lucy in this. She's just so like naive and innocent, which is sad. Like there was like a naivete always about her. Send up a flare when you want more. Let's see where we at. No, we're good right now. We're doing pretty good right now. Thank you so much, darling. But yes, I always felt so terrible for Lucy. Also, I apologize in advance. If you hear banging, it's my neighbors downstairs. So please excuse the noise. The adventure of the night does not seem to have harmed her. On the contrary, it has benefited her, for she looks better this morning than she has done for weeks. I was sorry to notice that my clumsiness with the safety pin had hurt her. Indeed, it might have been serious, for the skin of her throat was pierced. I must have pinched up a piece of loose skin and have transfixed it, for there are 2 little red points like pinpricks. And on the band of her nightdress was a drop of blood. When I apologized and was concerned about it, she laughed and petted me, and said she did not even feel it. Fortunately, it cannot leave a scar, as it is so tiny. I've never seen anyone sleepwalk. I've always wondered what it looks like. Funny story, my fiance actually sleepwalks, and his daughter sometimes sleepwalks too. It's very, very creepy. Usually for most people, from what I understand, it happens when people are stressed. It happens in times of like great stress, or if like you've got something like you're a little bit anxious about going on, you go to sleep anxious, it comes out in that way. It's the same with when people talk in their sleep. Usually has to do with stress or anxiety. But I know quite a few people actually, which is kind of freaky, that sleepwalk. And in my family, what's even worse is night terrors were so common. Both of my brothers ended up having night terrors way, way longer into their childhood than it's like projected for them to have, I sleep talk. Yeah, sometimes I sleep talk too. She does. One time, sidebar story, one time she came running into our bedroom, sleeping, and stood there, and she scared me, and I screamed. I went, ah, like that, and she went, ah, like that, with her eyes like half open, half closed, and then she sat down, and I was like, are you okay? And she didn't say anything, and we had to like escort her back to bed because they say you're not supposed to wake them. So yeah, so it is a little freaky, but it just happens when people are stressed, I guess. I get night terrors still at times. Oh, girl, me too. I get like bad night terrors sometimes. I had one recently. It was so terrible. I felt like I couldn't. What happened was I was in a dream where I was shot in the back, and in my dream I felt like I couldn't gasp for air, and Dominic had to wake me up because I guess I was like, ugh. It was terrible, terrible, horrible. So I guess it does still happen. It's horrible. The kid I used to babysit used to have terrors and sleepwalk. I always felt so bad because she used to. I know, it's sad. It is really sad. Night terrors are really sad though, especially in littles because they don't really understand what's happening. See, you better have your seatbelt on and you better be driving safely. All right, I will continue. Okay, thank you for the sidebar conversation. Same day, night. We passed a happy day. The air was clear, and the sun was bright, and there was a cool breeze. We took our lunch to Mulgrave Woods, Mrs. Westerner driving by the road, and Lucy and I walking by the cliff path and joining her at the gate. I felt a little sad myself, for I could not but feel how absolutely happy it would have been had Jonathan been with me. But there, I must only be patient. In the evening we strolled to the Casino Terrace and heard some good music by Soffer and Mackenzie. Spore, excuse me. I read that wrong. And Mackenzie, and went to bed early. Lucy seems even more restful than she has been for some time, and fell asleep at once. I shall lock the door and secure the key the same as before, though I do not expect any trouble tonight. 12th August. My expectations were wrong, for twice during the night I was wakened by Lucy trying to get out. I think that's so funny. She was like, what a great day. She's so tired. Oh, can't wait to sleep. I was wrong. just the way it's written. It's very, very funny. She seemed even in her sleep to be a little impatient at finding the door shut, and went back to bed under a sort of protest. I woke with the dawn and heard the birds chirping outside the window. Lucy woke too, and I was glad to see was even better than on the previous morning. All her old gaiety of manner seemed to have come back, and she came and snuggled in beside me and told me all about Arthur. I told her how anxious I was about Jonathan, and then she tried to comfort me. Well, she succeeded somewhat, for though sympathy can't alter facts, it can make them more bearable. 13th August. Another quiet day, and to bed with the key on my wrist as before. Again I awoke in the night and found Lucy sitting up in bed, still asleep, pointing to the window. I got up quietly and, pulling aside the blind, looked out. It was brilliant moonlight, and the soft effect of the light over the sea and sky merged together in one great silent mystery. It was beautiful beyond words. Between me and the moonlight flitted a great bat, coming and going in great whirling circles. Once or twice it came quite close, but was, I suppose, frightened at seeing me, and flitted away across the harbor towards the abbey. When I came back from the window, Lucy had laid down again and was sleeping peacefully. She did not stir again all night. 14th August. On the East Cliff, reading and writing all day. Lucy seems to have become as much in love with the spot as I am, as it is hard to get her away from it when it is time to come home for lunch or tea or dinner. This afternoon she made a funny remark. We were coming home for dinner, and had come to the top of the steps from the West Pier and stopped to look at the view. As we generally do, the setting sun, low down in the sky, was just dropping behind Kettleness. The red light was thrown over the East Cliff and the old abbey, and seemed to bathe everything in a beautiful rosy glow. We were silent for a while, and suddenly Lucy murmured as if to herself, "His red eyes again. They are just the same." It was such an odd expression, coming apropos of nothing, that it quite startled me. I slewed round a little, so as to see Lucy well without seeming to stare at her, and saw that she was in a half-dreamy state, with an odd look on her face that I could not quite make out. So I said nothing, but followed her eyes. She appeared to be looking over at our own seat, whereon was a dark figure seated alone. I was a little startled myself, for it seemed for an instant as if the stranger had great eyes like burning flames, but a second look dispelled the illusion. The red sunlight was shining on the windows of St. Mary's Church behind our seat, and as the sun dipped there was just sufficient change in the refraction and reflection to make it appear as if the light moved. I called Lucy's attention to the peculiar effect, and she became herself with a start, but she looked sad all the same. It may have been that she was thinking of that terrible night up there. We never referred to it, so I said nothing, and we went home to dinner. Lucy had a headache and went to bed early. I saw her asleep and went out for a little stroll myself. I walked along the cliffs to the westward, and was full of sweet sadness, for I was thinking of Jonathan. When coming home, it was then bright moonlight, so bright that, though the front of our part of the crescent was in shadow, everything could be well seen. I threw a glance up at our window and saw Lucy's head leaning out. I thought perhaps she was looking out for me, so I opened my handkerchief and waved it. Man, that's one thing. I'm going to start carrying a handkerchief and be dramatic when I say goodbye to people and be like, "Fare thee well." I think it'd be quite funny. She did not notice or make any movement whatever. Just then the moonlight crept around an angle of the building, and the light fell on the window. There distinctly was Lucy with her head lying up against the side of the window-sill, and her eyes shut. She was fast asleep, and by her, seated on the window-sill, was something that looked like a good-sized bird. I was afraid she might get a chill, so I ran upstairs, but as soon as I came into the room she was moving back to her bed, fast asleep and breathing heavily. She was holding her hand to her throat as though to protect it from the cold. I did not wake her, but tucked her up warmly. I have taken care that the door is locked and the window securely fastened. She looks so sweet as she sleeps, but she is paler than is her wont, and there is a drawn, haggard look under her eyes which I do not like. I fear she is fretting about something. I wish I could find out what it is. It is the giant bird at her window that she is fretting about. Okay. 15th August. Rose later than usual. Lucy was languid and tired, and slept on after we had been called. We had a happy surprise at breakfast. Arthur's father is better and wants the marriage to come off soon. Okay. Wants the marriage to come off soon. Okay. Lucy is full of quiet joy, and her mother is glad and sorry at once. Later on in the day she told me the cause. She is grieved to lose Lucy as her very own, but she is rejoiced that she is soon to have someone to protect her. Poor, dear, sweet lady. Worried she would get a chill. The bird didn't give her any paw. Seriously, I mean, listen, if I saw my friend hanging out a window, eyes closed, being kissed on the neck by a bird, like a giant bird, but I'm not going to question it? I don't know. There's a lot that she let slide. I don't know. She confided to me that she has got her death warrant. She has not told Lucy and made me promise secrecy. Her doctor told her that within a few months at most she must die. For her heart is weakening. At any time, even now, a sudden shock would be almost sure to kill her. Ah, we were wise to keep from her the affair of the dreadful night of Lucy's sleepwalking. If I saw a big bird, yeah, me too, I'd be like, is that an ostrich kissing my friend on the neck? What? What are we at the zoo? That'd be crazy. 17th August. No diary for 2 whole days. I have not had the heart to write. Some sort of shallowy pall seems to be coming over our happiness. No news from Jonathan. I think Mina was also under the influence through it all. You know what? You're probably right, and that might be also why she kind of just let things slide. She was like, "Oh, that's normal. Oh, a giant bat saw me and got frightened that it saw me and I saw it. That's fine. I'm just going to go to bed." You know. Weird. Very, very weird. No news. Bestie, are you good? I joke. I know. Me too. Hi, Maddie. Thanks for joining. We still have I'd say about an hour, so I'm really glad you're here. Bestie, are you good? Oh my gosh, that's very, very funny. Okay, let's see. No news from Jonathan, and Lucy seems to be growing weaker whilst her mother's hours are numbering to a close. I do not understand Lucy's fading away as she is doing. She eats well and sleeps well and enjoys the fresh air, but all the time she roses in her bed, cheeks are fading, and she gets weaker and more languid day by day. At night I hear her gasping as if for air. I keep the key for our door always fastened to my wrist at night, but she gets up and walks about the room and sits at the open windows. Last night I found her leaning out when I woke up, and when I tried to wake her I could not. She was in a faint. When I managed to restore her, she was weak as water, and cried silently between long, painful struggles for breath. Hola, ¿cómo estás? When I asked her how she came to be at the window, she shook her head and turned away. I trust her feeling ill may not be from that unlucky prick of the safety pin. I looked at her throat just now as she lay asleep, and the tiny wounds seem not to have healed. They are still open, and, if anything, larger than before, and the edges of them are faintly white. They are like little white dots with red centers. Unless they heal within a day or so, I shall insist on the doctor seeing about them. You know why they're getting bigger? It's because she was visited by, what first? A bat, and then a giant bird, and soon it's gonna be a dog, so, that may be why it's getting bigger. Letter, Samuel F. Billington and Son, Solicitors, Whitby, to Messrs. Carter, Patterson and Co., London. Not worried about the giant bird, but is worried about giving her friend tetanus. Yeah, seriously. I fear I have pricked her with a safety pin. You don't fear that she was up in the cemetery at night being kissed on the neck by a strange man that looked like a bird? No? Okay. 17th August. Dear Sirs, herewith please receive invoice of goods sent by Great Northern Railway. Some are to be delivered at Carfax, near Purfleet, immediately on receipt at Goods Station, King's Cross. The house is at present empty, but enclosed please find keys, all of which are labelled. You will please deposit the boxes, 50 in number, which form the consignment, in the partially ruined building forming part of the house and marked A on rough diagrams enclosed. Your agent will easily recognize the locality, as it is the ancient chapel of the mansion. The goods leave by the train at 9:30 tonight and will be due at King's Cross at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon. As our client wishes the delivery made as soon as possible, we shall be obliged by your having teams ready at King's Cross at the time named and forthwith conveying the goods to destination. In order to obviate any delays possible through any routine requirements as to payment in your departments, we enclose check herewith for £10. £10. Receipt of which please acknowledge. Should the charge be less than this amount, you can return balance. If greater, we shall at once send check for difference on hearing from you. You are to leave the keys on coming away in the main hall of the house, where the proprietor may get them on his entering the house by any means of his duplicate key. Pray do not take us as exceeding the bounds of business courtesy in pressing you in all ways to use the utmost expedition. We are, dear sirs, faithfully yours, Samuel F. Billington and Son. The drama. All right. Letter, Messrs. Carter, Patterson and Co., London, to Messrs. Billington and Son, Whitby. 21st August. Dear Sirs, we beg to acknowledge £10 received and to return check of £1 17 amount of overplus wait, £1 17 and 9D. Interesting. So it's very interesting. I don't know how British money used to work in regards to like change and things like that. Very interesting. But anyway, amount of overplus is shown in receipted amount herewith. Goods are delivered in exact accordance with instructions and keys left in parcel in main hall as directed. We are, dear sirs, yours respectfully, Pro Carter, Patterson and Co. Thank God we got our £1 17 back. Yeah, seriously. Mina Murray's journal, 18th August. I am happy today, and right sitting on the seat in the churchyard. Lucy is ever so much better. Last night she slept well all night and did not disturb me once. The roses seem coming back already to her cheeks. The roses, okay. So whenever they say the roses, talking about her facial complexion, I always am like, is that the way they say it? I'm assuming it's like an old English way of saying it. I'm going to assume. So it says, the roses seem coming back already to her cheeks, though she is still sadly pale and wan-looking. If she were in any way anemic, I could understand it, but she is not. She is in gay spirits and full of life and cheerfulness. All the morbid reticence seems to have passed from her, and she has just reminded me, as if needed any reminding, that of that night, and that it was here, on this very seat, I found her asleep. And she told me she tapped playfully with the heel of her boot on the stone slab and said, "My poor little feet didn't make much noise then. I dare say poor old Mr. Swales would have told me that it was because I didn't want to wake up Geordie." If you remember, Geordie is the person who old Mr. Swales talked about, who is deceased. Let's see. You should do a whole cassette or sound file of books you read and sell them. I would really love to do that. I previously was going to, and then life happened, and I ended up not. But I would love to do that. So, okay. As she was in such a communicative humor, I asked her if she had dreamed at all that night. Before she answered, that sweet puckered look came into her forehead, which Arthur, I call him Arthur from her habit, says he loves, and indeed I don't wonder that he does. Then she went on in a half-dreaming kind of way, as if trying to recall it to herself. I didn't quite dream, but it all seemed to be real. I only wanted to be here in this spot. I don't know why, for I was afraid of something. I don't know what. I remember, though, I suppose, I was asleep, passing through the streets and over the bridge. A fish leapt as I went by, and I leaned over to look at it, and I heard a lot of dogs howling. The whole town seemed as if it must be full of dogs all howling at once. As I went up the steps, then I have a vague memory of something long and dark with red eyes, just as we saw in the sunset, and something very sweet and very bitter all around me at once. And then I seemed sinking into deep green water, and there was a singing in my ears, as I have heard there is to drowning men, and then everything seemed passing away from me. My soul seemed to go out from my body and float about in the air. I seem to remember that once the West Lighthouse was right under me, and then there was a sort of agonizing feeling as if I were in an earthquake. And I came back and found you shaking my body. I saw you do it before I felt you. Ooh. Then she began to laugh. It seemed a little uncanny to me, and I listened to her breathlessly. I did not quite like it, and thought it better not to keep her mind on the subject, so we drifted on to another subject, and Lucy was like her old self again. When we got home, the fresh breeze had braced her up, and her pale cheeks were really more rosy. Hello, Kat. We are currently reading Dracula by Bram Stoker. Thanks for joining. Her mother rejoiced when she saw her, and we all spent a very happy evening together. 19th August. Joy, 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 although not all joy. At last, news of Jonathan. The dear fellow has been ill, that is why he did not write. I am not afraid to think it or to say it, now that I know. Mr. Hawkins sent me on the letter, and wrote himself oh so kindly. I am to leave in the morning, and go over to Jonathan, and to help to nurse him if necessary, and to bring him home. Mr. Hawkins says it would not be a bad thing if I were to be married out there. I have cried over the good sister's letter till I can feel it wet against my bosom, where it lies. It is of Jonathan, and must be near my heart, for he is in my heart. My journey is all mapped out, my luggage ready. I am only taking one change of dress. Lucy will bring my trunk to London, and keep it till I send for it may be that I must write no more. I must keep it to say to Jonathan, my husband. The letter that he has seen and touched must comfort me till we meet. Letter, Sister Agatha, Hospital of St. Joseph and St. Mary, Budapest, to Miss Wilhelmina Murray, 12th August. Dear Madam, I write by desire of Mr. Jonathan Harker, who is himself not strong enough to write, though progressing well, thanks to God and St. Joseph and St. Mary. He has been under our care for nearly 6 weeks, suffering from a violent brain fever. He wishes me to convey his love, and to say that by this post I write for him to Mr. Peter Hawkins, Exeter, to say, with his dutiful respects, that he is sorry for his delay, and that all of his work is completed. He will require some few weeks' rest in our sanatorium in the hills, but will then return. He wishes me to say that he has not sufficient money with him, and that he would like to pay for his staying here, so that the others who need shall not be wanting for help. Believe me, yours with sympathy and all blessings, Sister Agatha. P.S. My patient being asleep, I open this to let you know something more. He has told me all about you, and that you are shortly to be his wife. All blessings to you both. He has had some fearful shock, so says our doctors, and in his delirium his ravings have been dreadful, of wolves and poison and blood and ghosts and demons, and I fear to say of what. Be careful with him always, that there may be nothing to excite him of this kind for a long time to come. The traces of such an illness as his do not lightly die away. We should have written long ago, but we knew nothing of his friends, and there was nothing on him, nothing that anyone could understand. He came in the train from Klausenburg, and the guard was told by the station master there that he rushed into the station shouting for a ticket home. Seeing from his violent demeanour that he was English, they gave him a ticket for the furthest station on the way thither that the train reached. Be assured that he is well cared for. He has won all hearts by his sweetness and gentleness. He is truly getting on well, and I have no doubt will in a few weeks be all himself, but be careful of him, for safety's sake. There are, I pray God, and St. Joseph and St. Mary, many, many happy years for you both. Dr. Seward's Diary, 19th August. Strange and sudden change in Renfield last night. About 8 o'clock he began to get excited and sniff about as a dog does when setting. The attendant was struck by his manner, and knowing my interest in him, encouraged him to talk. He is usually respectful to the attendant and at times servile, but tonight the man tells me he was quite haughty. He was quite haughty. Would not condescend to talk with him at all. All he would say was, "I don't want to talk to you. You don't count now. The master is at hand." I love Renfield. He's my favorite character. Seeing that he was English. Yeah, exactly. The attendant thinks it is some sudden form of religious mania which has seized him. If so, we must look out for squalls, for a strong man with homicidal and religious mania at once might be dangerous. The combination is a dreadful one. At 9 o'clock I visited him myself. His attitude to me was the same as that to the attendant. In his sublime self-feeling, the difference between myself and the attendant seemed to him as nothing. It looks like religious mania, and he will soon think that he himself is God. These infinitesimal distinctions between man and man are too paltry for an omnipotent being. How these madmen give themselves away! The real God taketh heed lest a sparrow fall. But the God created from human vanity sees no difference between an eagle and a sparrow. Oh, if men only knew! For half an hour or more Renfield kept getting excited in greater and greater degree. I did not pretend to be watching him, but I keep strict observation all the same. All at once that shifty look came into his eyes, which we always see when a madman has seized an idea, and with it the shifty movement of head and back which asylum attendants come to know so well. He became quite quiet, and went and sat on the edge of his bed resignedly, and looked into space with lackluster eyes. I love you so much. You are totally okay. I am so glad you're here, and that's my best friend. Everybody, hi Seth. Nice to see you. Let's see, Renfield always scared me as a kid more than Dracula. Renfield is scary because he has that human brutality to him. That was like terrifying because he was even more unpredictable so at times than Dracula. Also, Renfield lost his ever-loving marbles from the inside of his skull, so he was quite terrifying. What I like about him, though, is, again, the drama, and I do also love the portrayals of him throughout many of the Dracula films. I just like how he's been portrayed in media. If I have a boy dog, I would like to get a boy black lab eventually, and I'd like to call him Renfield and hope that he loves me dearly. So that's the goal one day. We continue. I thought I would find out if his apathy were real or only assumed, and tried to lead him to talk of his pets. Tom Waits, yeah. Tom Waits was awesome. Was he considered a ghoul or something vampire-like? He would have been considered more of a, what is the word that they use for him? There's a word that they use for him. When a person is promised, basically, they're promised like a vampiric nature if they do servitude for a certain amount of time. That's what he is. He's somebody knows the word. A familiar. He's like a familiar, basically, where he does the dirty work. A thrall is another good word for it. Yeah, but he's like a familiar, where he does the dirty work of the vampire during the daylight, spreads the word, gets the victims, things like that. So that's kind of more of what he does. Dracula has rules and structure. Renfield doesn't. Childhood, yeah, that's what it is. Definitely, 100%. Yeah, that's definitely what it is. Yep. Okay. Let's see. At first he made no reply, but at length said testily, "Bother them all. I don't care a pin about them." "What?" I said. "You don't mean to tell me you don't care about spiders?" Spiders at present are his hobby, and the notebook is filling up with columns of small figures. To this he answered enigmatically, "The bride maidens rejoice the eyes that wait the coming of the bride. But when the bride draweth nigh, then the maidens shine not to the eyes that are filled." He's like a beard. Yeah, he's like a beard. You're such a goose. He would not explain himself, but remained obstinately seated on his bed all the time I remained with him. Yes, like Guillermo, exactly. I am weary tonight and low in spirits. I cannot but think of Lucy and how different things might have been. If I don't sleep at once, chloral, the modern Morpheus, C2HC1 or HCI3OH2O. I must be careful not to let it grow into a habit. No, I shall take none tonight. I have thought of Lucy, and I shall not dishonor her by mixing the two. If need be, tonight shall be sleepless. The actor who played Harnock, and I agree 100%. Yeah, he was terrifying. I also loved the occultism aspect that they put into it. That was freaky. I really, really liked that a lot. It was good. It was really good. Glad I made the resolution, gladder that I kept to it. I had lain tossing about and had heard the clock strike only twice when the night watchman came to me, sent up from the ward to say that Renfield had escaped. Oh. I threw on my clothes and ran down at once. My patient is too dangerous a person to be roaming about. Those ideas of his might work out dangerously with strangers. The attendant was waiting for me. He said he had seen him not 10 minutes before, seemingly asleep in his bed when he had looked through the observation trap in the door. His attention was called by the sound of the window being wrenched out. He ran back and saw his feet disappear through the window, and had at once sent up for me. He was only in his night gear, and cannot be far off. The attendant thought it would be more useful to watch where he should go than to follow him, as he might lose sight of him whilst getting out of the building by the door. He is a bulky man and couldn't get through the window. I am thin, so with his aid I got out, but feet foremost, and as we were only a few feet above the ground, landed unhurt. The attendant told me the patient had gone to the left and had taken a straight line, so I ran as quickly as I could. As I got through the belt of trees, I saw a white figure scale the wall which separates our grounds from those of the deserted house. I ran back at once, told the watchman to get 3 or 4 men immediately and follow me into the grounds of Carfax, in case our friend might be dangerous. I got a ladder myself, and crossing the wall, dropped down on the other side. I could see Renfield's figure just disappearing behind the angle of the house, so I ran after him. On the far side of the house, I found him pressed close against the old iron-bound oak door of the chapel. He was talking apparently to someone, but I was afraid to go near enough to hear what he was saying, lest I might frighten him and he should run off. Chasing an errant swarm of bees is nothing to following a naked lunatic when the fit of escaping is upon him. After a few minutes, however, I could see that he did not take note of anything around him, and so ventured to draw nearer to him, the more so as my men had now crossed the wall, and were closing him in. I heard him say, "I am here to do your bidding, master. I am your slave, and you will reward me, for I shall be faithful. I have worshipped you long and afar off. Now that you are near, I await your commands, and you will not pass me by, will you, dear master, in your distribution of good things?" He is a selfish old beggar, anyhow. He thinks of the loaves and fishes even when he believes he is in a real presence. His manias make a startling combination. When we closed in on him, he fought like a tiger. He is immensely strong, and he was more like a wild beast than a man. Yes, it is. That metaphor with the bees was quite wild. I agree. I never saw a lunatic in such a paroxysm of rage before, and I hope I shall not again. It is a mercy that we have found out his strength and his danger in good time. With strength and determination like this, he might have done wild work before he was caged. He is safe now, at any rate. Jack Shepherd himself couldn't get free from the strait waistcoat that keeps him restrained. Sorry, my eyes played a trick on me. I'm sorry. And he's chained to the wall in the padded room. His cries are at times awful, but the silences that follow are more deadly still, for he means murder in every turn and movement. Just now he spoke coherent words for the first time. "I shall be patient, master. It is coming, coming, coming." So I took the hint and came too. I was too excited to sleep, but the diary has quieted me, and I feel I shall get some sleep tonight. All right, let's see how long chapter 9 is here. Where are we at? Okay, we got 16 minutes. Let's see. All right, it's a lot of correspondence with Dr. Seward. Okay, I don't think we'll be able to finish all this in the time. Chapter 9's a little long, but that's okay. We'll get as far as we can. Okay, how's that sound? All right, chapter 9. Letter, Mina Harker to Lucy Westerner. Mina Harker, look at her, she changed her name. Budapest, 24th August. My dearest Lucy, I know you will be anxious to hear all that has happened since we parted at the railway station at Whitby. Well, my dear, I got to Hull all right and caught the boat to Hamburg and then the train on here. I feel that I can hardly recall anything of the journey except that I knew I was coming to Jonathan and that as I should have to do some nursing, I had better get all the sleep I could. I found my dear one, oh, so thin, pale, and weak-looking. All the resolution has gone out of his dear eyes, and that quiet dignity which I told you was in his face has vanished. He is only a wreck of himself, and he does not more remember. That doesn't sound right either. I'm going to read a different version next time. I'm sorry. Some of this, that's why I'm holding the book up. I'm like making sure I'm reading correctly. Some of this, it looks like it was edited. Like they actually went through and edited actual lines from the book. Because I don't recall it. I don't recall the other one having this many where I'm like, is that really the way it's supposed to be written? Anyway, that's okay. He is only a wreck of himself, and that I'm assuming it's that he does not remember anything that has happened to him for a long time past. At least he wants me to believe so, and I shall never ask. He has had some terrible shock, and I fear it might tax his poor brain if he were to try to recall it. Sister Agatha, who is a good creature and a born nurse, tells me that he raved of dreadful things whilst he was off his head. I wanted her to tell me what they were, but she would only cross herself and say she would never tell, that the ravings of the sick were the secrets of God, and that if a nurse through her vocation should hear them, she should respect her trust. She is a sweet, good soul, and the next day, when she saw I was troubled, she opened up the subject again, and after saying that she could never mention what my poor dear raved about, added, I can tell you this much, my dear, that it was not about anything which he has done wrong himself, and you as his wife-to-be have no cause to be concerned. He has not forgotten you or what he owes to you. His fear was of great and terrible things which no mortal can treat of. I do believe the dear soul thought I might be jealous lest my poor dear should have fallen in love with any other girl. The idea of my being jealous about Jonathan. Thank you so much, Kat. I appreciate you buying a badge. That's really sweet of you. You didn't have to do that. Thank you. Thank you. I do believe the dear soul thought I might be jealous lest my poor dear should have fallen in love with another girl. The idea of my being jealous about Jonathan, and yet my dear let me whisper, I felt a thrill of joy through me when I knew that no other woman was a cause for trouble. I am now sitting by my bedside, where I can see his face while he sleeps. He is waking. When he woke, he asked me for his coat, as he wanted to get something from the pocket. I asked Sister Agatha, and she brought all his things. I saw that amongst them was his notebook, and was going to ask him to let me look at it, for I knew that I might find some clue to his trouble, but I supposed he must have seen my wish in my eyes, for he sent me over to the window, saying he wanted to be quite alone for a moment. Then he called back, and he said to me very solemnly, Wilhelmina. I knew then that he was in deadly earnest, for he has never called me by that name since he asked me to marry him. You know, my dear, my ideas of the trust between husband and wife. There should be no secret, no concealment. I have had a great shock, and when I try to think of what it is, I feel my head spin round, and I do not know if it was real or the dreaming of a madman. You know I had brain fever, and that is to be mad. The secret is here, and I do not want it to know it. I want to take up my life here with our marriage. For, my dear, we had decided to be married as soon as the formalities are complete. Are you willing, Wilhelmina, to share my ignorance? Here is the book. Take it and keep it. Read it if you will, but never let me know, unless indeed some solemn duty should come upon me to go back to the bitter hours, asleep or awake, sane or mad, recorded here. He fell back exhausted, and I put the book under his pillow and kissed him. I have asked Sister Agatha to beg the Superior to let our wedding be this afternoon, and am waiting her reply. She has come and told me that the chaplain of the English Mission Church has been sent for. We are to be married in an hour, or as soon as Jonathan wakes. Lucy, the time has come and gone. I feel very solemn, but very, very happy. Jonathan woke a little after the hour, and all was ready, and he sat up in bed, propped up with pillows. He answered his "I will" firmly and strongly. I could hardly speak. My heart was so full. Oh, my elbow slipped. That even those words seemed to choke me. The dear sisters were so kind. Please God, I shall never, never forget them, nor the grave and sweet responsibilities I have taken upon me. I must tell you of my wedding present. When the chaplain and the sisters had left me alone with my husband, oh, Lucy, it was the first time I have written the words "my husband" left me alone with my husband. I took the book from under his pillow and wrapped it up in white paper and tied it with a little bit of pale blue ribbon which was around my neck, and sealed it over the knot with sealing wax, and for my seal I used my wedding ring. Then I kissed it and showed it to my husband, and told him that I would keep it so, and then it would be an outward and visible sign for us all our lives that we trusted each other. That I would never open it unless it were for his own dear sake, or for the sake of some stern duty. Then he took my hand in his, and oh, Lucy, it was the first time he took his wife's hand, and said that it was the dearest thing in all the world. It was the dearest thing in all the wide world, and that he would go through all the past again to win it, if need be. The poor dear meant to have said a part of the past, but he cannot think of time yet, and I shall not wonder if at first he mixes up only the month, but the year. Well, my dear, what can I say? I could only tell him that I was the happiest woman in all the wide world, and that I had nothing to give him except myself, my life, and my trust, and that with these went my love and duty for all the days of my life. And, my dear, when he kissed me and drew me to him with his poor weak hands, it was like a solemn pledge between us. I know, my husband, oh, my husband. Lucy, dear, do you know why I tell you all this? It is not only because it is all sweet to me, but because you have been and are very dear to me. It was my privilege to be your friend and guide when you came from the schoolroom to prepare for the world of life. I want you to see now, and with the eyes of a very happy wife, whither duty has led me, so that in your own married life you too may all be happy as I am. My dear, please Almighty God, your life may be all its promises. A day long of sunshine with no harsh wind, no forgetting duty, no distrust. I must not wish you no pain. I say, okay, for that can never be. But I do hope you will always be as happy as I am now. Goodbye, my dear. I shall post this at once, and perhaps write you again very soon. I must stop, for Jonathan is waking. I must attend to my husband. Your ever-loving Mina Harker. Oh, good heavens. My husband. Oh. It's okay. I'll be the same way when I get married. I'll be like, oh, I have to go ask my husband. Oh, yes, I'm waiting on my husband. Oh. Letter, Lucy Westerner to Mina Harker, Whitby, 30th August. My dearest Mina, oceans of love and millions of kisses, and may you soon be in your own home with your husband. I wish you were coming home soon enough to stay with us here. The strong air would soon restore Jonathan. It has quite restored me. I have an appetite like a cormorant, am full of life, and sleep well. You will be glad to know that I have quite given up walking in my sleep. I think I have not stirred out of my bed for a week. That is when I once got into it at night. Arthur says I am getting fat. By the way, I forgot to tell you that Arthur is here. We have such walks and drives and rides and rowing and tennis and fishing together, and I love him more than ever. He tells me that he loves me more, but I doubt that, for at first he told me that he couldn't love me more than he did then. But this is nonsense. There he is calling to me. So no more just at present from your loving Lucy. P.S. Mother sends her love. She seems better, poor dear. P.P.S. We are to be married on 28th September. Dr. Seward's Diary. 20th August. The case of Renfield grows even more interesting. He is now so far quieted that there are spells of cessation from his passion. For the first week after his attack he was perpetually violent. Then one night, just as the moon rose, he grew quiet and kept murmuring to himself, "Now I can wait. Now I can wait." The attendant came to tell me, so I ran down at once to have a look at him. He was still in the strait waistcoat and in the padded room, but the suffused look had gone from his face, and his eyes had something of their old pleading, I might almost say cringing, softness. I was satisfied with his present condition and directed him to be relieved. The attendants hesitated, but finally carried out my wishes without protest. It was a strange thing that the patient had humor enough to see their distrust, for, coming close to me, he said in a whisper, all the while looking furtively at them, "They think I could hurt you. Fancy me hurting you, the fools." Yeah, Arthur sounds like a very sweet man in this, for sure. It was soothing, somehow, to the feelings to find myself disassociated even in the mind of this poor madman from the others, but all the same I do not follow his thought. Am I to take it that I have anything in common with him, so that we are, as it were, to stand together, or has he no gain from me, some good for some good so stupendous, that my well-being is needful to him? I must find out later on. Tonight he will not speak. Even the offer of a kitten or even a full-grown cat will not tempt him. He will only say, "I don't take any stock in cats. I have more to think of now, and I can wait. I can wait." After a while I left him. The attendant tells me that he was quiet until just before dawn, and that then he began to get uneasy, and at length violent, until at last he fell into a paroxysm, which exhausted him so that he swooned into a sort of coma. 3 nights has the same thing happened, violent all day, then quiet from moonrise to sunrise. I wish I could get some clue to the cause. It would almost seem as if there was some influence which came and went. Happy thought! We shall tonight play sane wits against mad ones. He escaped before without our help. Tonight he shall escape with it. We shall give him a chance, and have the men ready to follow in case they are required. 23rd August. The expected always happens. How well Disraeli knew life! Our bird, when he found the cage open, would not fly, so all our subtle arrangements were for naught. At any rate, we have proved one thing, that the spells of quietness last a reasonable time. We shall in future be able to ease his bonds for a few hours each day. I have given orders to the night attendant merely to shut him in the padded room when once he is quiet, until the hour before sunrise. The poor soul's body will enjoy the relief even in his mind cannot appreciate it. Hark! The unexpected again. I am called. The patient has once more escaped. This man, he's just terrible. Later, another night adventure. Renfield artfully waited until the attendant was entering the room to inspect. Then he dashed out past him and flew down the passage. I sent word for the attendants to follow. Again he went into the grounds of the deserted house, and we found him in the same place, pressed against the old chapel door. When he saw me he became furious, and had not the attendants seized him in time, he would have tried to kill me. As we were holding him, a strange thing happened. He suddenly redoubled his efforts, and then as suddenly grew calm. I looked round instinctively, but could see nothing. Then I caught the patient's eye, and followed it, but could trace nothing as it looked into the moonlight sky. except a big bat which was flapping its silent and ghostly way to the west. Bats usually wheel and flit about, but this one seemed to go straight on as if it knew where it was bound for or had some intention of its own. The patient grew calmer every instant and presently said, "You needn't tie me. I shall go quietly." Without trouble we came back to the house. I feel there is something ominous in his calm and shall not forget this night. Lucy Westerner's diary. Hillingham, 24th August. I must imitate Mina and keep writing things down. Then we can have long talks when we do meet. I wonder when it will be. I wish she were with me again, for I feel so unhappy. Last night I seemed to be dreaming again just as I was at Whitby. Perhaps it is the change of air or getting home again. It is all dark and horrid to me, for I can remember nothing, but I am full of vague fear, and I feel so weak and worn out. When Arthur came to lunch, he looked quite grieved when he saw me, and I hadn't the spirit to try to be cheerful. I wonder if I could sleep in Mother's room tonight. I shall make an excuse and try. 25th August. Another bad night. Mother did not seem to take my proposal. She seems not too well herself, and doubtless she fears to worry me. I tried to keep awake and succeeded for a while, but when the clock struck 12 it waked me from a doze, so I must have been falling asleep. There was a sort of scratching or flapping at the window, but I did not mind it, as I remember no more. I suppose I must have fallen asleep. More bad dreams. I wish I could remember them. This morning I am horribly weak. My face is ghastly pale, and my throat pains me. It must be something wrong with my lungs, for I don't seem to be getting enough air. I shall try to cheer up when Arthur comes, or else I know he will be as miserable to see me so. Letter, Arthur Holmwood to Dr. Seward. Albemarle Hotel, 31st August. My dear Jack, I want you to do me a favor. Lucy is ill, that is, she has no special disease, but she looks awful, and is getting worse every day. The girl just looks bad. I have asked her if there is any cause. I not dare to ask her mother, for to disturb the poor lady's mind about her daughter in her present state of health would be fatal. Mrs. Westerner has confided to me that her doom is spoken, disease of the heart, though poor Lucy does not know it yet. I am sure that there is something preying on my dear girl's mind. I am most distracted when I think of her. To look at her gives me a pang. I told her I should ask you to see her, and though she demurred at first, I know why, old fellow, she finally consented. It will be a painful task for you, I know, old friend, but it is for her sake, and I must not hesitate to ask or you to act. You are to come to lunch at Hillingham tomorrow, 2 o'clock, so as not to arouse any suspicion in Mrs. Westerner. And after lunch, Lucy will take an opportunity of being alone with you. I shall come in for tea, and we can go away together. I am filled with anxiety and want to consult with you alone as soon as I can after you have seen her. Do not fail. Arthur. Telegram, Arthur Holmwood to Dr. Seward, 1st September. Am summoned to see my father, who is worse. Am writing. Write me fully by tonight's post to wire me if necessary. All right, we're going to stop here tonight and pick up on the letter from Dr. Seward to Arthur Holmwood to, I was going to say tomorrow. No, next week. We'll pick up next week, okay? Let me just make a little tag of this. Boop. All right, so we got to, let's see, we're nearly finished with chapter 10. But I won't keep you guys too long because it's been about 2 hours. So we'll pick up next time. There we'll complete 9. We'll do 10, and we should be able to get to, let's see. I'd like to get all of 10 done, and I would like to get all of 11 done too. That's doable. We can definitely do that next time. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll finish there next time, okay, everyone? I hope you enjoyed this evening. I'm so grateful for everybody who is here. I will, once we're off of here, if you came in late, or if you want to watch it, and you want to listen, or you just want to put this on in the background and make soup, like some people did this evening, I will be putting this on YouTube afterwards, the full live for everybody, so you guys can catch up on it. And if you're watching this recorded, thank you so much for being here and watching after the fact. I appreciate you all. I am probably going to, I found out last night, I didn't know about this. I found out last night that the actor Doug Jones, if you know who Doug Jones is, he does like a lot of character acting. He starred as Count Orlok in a 2023 rendition of Nosferatu. So I think I'm going to go try that on Amazon Prime tonight with Dominic. I have not told him yet. This is him finding out for the first time. I did find that though. I thought it'd be interesting to see it. I watched an interview of Doug Jones talking about it yesterday, and he said that, it kind of was swept under, obviously, because Robert Eggers' Nosferatu came out. But the Nosferatu that he was in, I think it's Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. And it's a shot-for-shot recreation of the original film, which is very, very interesting. And has music. It is in black and white. And all of the shots, from what I saw in the trailer, they basically green screened the new actors over the old shots, which is very, very fascinating. All the lighting is similar to some of that like sepia tone that was in the old film is in it as well. So I thought it would be interesting to watch that. Doug Jones looks fantastic from the trailer as Nosferatu. So I think I'm going to try that out tonight. And I will, if I like it, I will let you all know. I'll give a nice little review so you guys can hear my actual thoughts on it. But yeah, I saw it on, I think it's on Tubi. It's also on Amazon Prime if you guys have Prime. If you Tubi, sometimes I get impatient with because of the commercials. I have a very low tolerance for commercials. Prime does it too sometimes, honestly. But so I'm going to try that out. And let you know what I think. Thought it was really interesting to see that he did. I didn't even know that he had done that. So we'll check that out. And then tomorrow I'm going to be putting up. There's 2 vampire films upcoming within the next 3 months. So I was going to make a video about those and talk about it. There is a Dracula film coming out. It is a French one. So I was going to give you guys some info on that, when it's going to come out, who's directing it. I'm also going to talk about Sinners, which is coming out too. That looks freaking awesome. It comes out in April, I think. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. And also too, Seth and I have Tea Time Tuesday, if you want to join us there for that. That's, again, it's kind of like a podcast with 2 people just shooting the breeze, talking about nonsense. A lot of times we end up talking about, I don't know, our opinions on things and music and film and the whole shebang. So if you're interested in that, we'll be on tomorrow talking to each other. Let's see, physical media is where it's at. No commercials. I know, you're definitely right about that. That's why anytime that a new film comes out, if I really enjoy it, like if I see it in the cinema, I usually try to get a DVD of it. So this month, I believe Nosferatu, the Robert Eggers one, comes out on physical media. So I'm going to grab that so I can have that one. You know what I mean? So, but thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for buying badges. Thank you for participating. Thanks for making me laugh. I love you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I hope I see you tomorrow at Tea Time Tuesday. I'll make a post for what time that is. And yeah, I just love you guys so much. And I hope that the rest of this week is low stress and that not too many crazy things happen. So, but I love you. This is me tucking you in. Tuck. Tucking you into bed. Okay. Here's your hug. Okay. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.